So the first one that I always give is using inclusive language. I think that's one of the easiest, smallest things that you can do that really makes a big difference. And for some people, it's really easy. Some people, it's harder. If you've been on this earth a long time, you might be have things really ingrained in you as far as language goes, because the words that we use matter. And so we want to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible.
Welcome to Speaking for Profit Live podcast. This is Yvonne Benton, the Speaking for Profit coach. My pronouns are they or king, whether you're feeling royal or not. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation where we're going to talk about what does it mean to really be inclusive in schools, especially when we're talking about K through 12 education. And I have an amazing expert here, one of my amazing clients, an S4P member, an amazing DEI facilitator, SJ, who's going to really ground us in this conversation. If this is your first time listening to the Speaking for Profit podcast, we are here to help you as a diverse change agent and leader monetize your message and your expertise and really live an abundant life. And often when we talk about abundance, a lot of people think about money. And yes, we help make people make money, but what we're really trying to do is create more freedom in our lives. And I think when we're talking about LGBT inclusivity and freedom, we're really talking about the awareness that we can be here, that we can survive, and what are the strategies that organizations and particularly educational institutions need to do to add in space and create more space for our community. So I will read a little bit of SJ's amazing bio, but I'm also going to let them share with us because I think it's important that we all have an opportunity to share our narrative and share who we are. But SJ is the founder and consultant of Empowered for Equity Consultant, where their passion and expertise in diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging helped equip others with the tools to create inclusive spaces for schools and workplaces. SJ has spent the last 5 years teaching high school level English in the U.S. and abroad at the start of their career, and eventually left the classroom in pursuit to a master's degree in education as well. What I want to say about SJ before I bring them to the stage is SJ really has came into Speaking for Profit and had an opportunity to grasp what it means to be a professional speaker, but has been doing this for years. And what I really appreciate about their work, y'all, is they really put on for the community. So if you haven't already, please make sure you go follow their work. When I say that they share so many amazing resources, from grants to opportunities to get education, from art events. So when you're thinking about where are the places where you can find out what's happening within the LGBT community around the world, SJ and his amazing consulting firm is a great place to start. So SJ, I want to bring you to the stage. Thank you so much for being here, fam. Thank you so much for being here during Pride Month and showing up in the space. I hope I did a good introduction for you.
You did a great one. Thank you so much for having me. Happy Pride. I always just get so energized by Pride Month. Like, I know everyone has a different relationship with Pride Month. Some people hate it in our community. Some people, it's not so great for them. But for me, it just energizes me. And I just love being in community with other queer and trans folks. So anytime I get to do that, I'm always very happy. But thank you for having me.
No problem. And, it's good to see a smile on the face about Pride Month. I think, I was having a conversation with some friends. Often we are kind of privileged, right? Like, I think, since I've been alive, well, at least since I've been out, right? Because I've been alive probably a lot longer than I was out. Pride was always like a fun and more of a party atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And I know that so many of our LGBT elders, it was a time for activism and hitting the streets. Yeah. And sometimes we get those nuances where both exist. But for us, I think it's been a little bit more of a celebration. And I'm really thankful for that. So I introduced you, but I would love for you to not only introduce yourself, SJ, but tell us a little bit about Empowered for Equity and how did you come up with the name and what does your consulting company do?
Yeah, so my name is SJ Janjua. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm actually about to come up on 1 year of having my business. I started my business last June 14th.
Congratulations. So you
Yeah,
started your business during Pride Month.
I did.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did start it during Pride. But that's been an exciting thing to like reflect on and look back and be like, wow, I'm in such a different place a year later than I was in so many good ways, because I've just learned so much from S4P, but also from just like connecting with other consultants and really like learning the lay of the land and like figuring out everything. Some things, figured that out the easy way. Some things figured out the hard way. You know how it is. So I started Empowered for Equity last June, as a lot of teachers do. I taught for a little while. I was a high school level English teacher, and then ended up leaving the classroom because I wasn't able to be out in any way, shape, or form. I'm from Texas. I was teaching in Texas, and it's not the friendliest place for queer and trans people. So that took a really big toll on my mental health as a teacher, along with everything else that teachers have to deal with. It was really hard to deal with that as well. And so I ended up leaving the classroom and then going to get my master's degree, and then doing, a little bit of other work in there, but then landed in nonprofit work at an education nonprofit. And that's where I really started doing formalized DEI work. I always joke and say that I've been doing DEI work my entire life, because I've always kind of been teaching people how to interact with me and how to treat me, as a trans, non-binary, queer, multiracial person. I feel like I've always had to kind of like teach people that. So I always joke and say I've been doing it forever, but I didn't start formally doing it until about 5 years ago. And so I've been doing that at a nonprofit. And over the years doing that work, I was like, maybe I should become a consultant and do this consulting wise, because it's really different when you're internally, at the same organization doing DEI work versus getting to work with a lot of different organizations, schools, different places with different kinds of people. And so I always kind of had it in the back of my head, like maybe this could be lucrative. Like I could, maybe do that full time and be able to quit my other job. And I actually had a mentor that was like, let's revisit that. Like, let's talk about that more. Cause I kind of like put it to the back of my head, because I was just like, I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about finances. Like, I'm scared to like take that leap. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing enough to feel comfortable. And so I had this mentor who also had done consulting and was working with me. And she was like, I'm going to put a date. I want you to put a date on the calendar. And I want you to have your business started by that day. And that's like the push that it took to get me to do it. And that's the advice I give a lot of people, is like, just start, just do it, because otherwise you could wait your whole life, like thinking you're not ready for it or you don't know enough and never do it. And I don't ever want to like have regrets about, not trying something or not doing something. And so that's how Empowered for Equity was born. But the name comes from the feeling that I want people to have as a result of working with me, which is empowered. I always want to leave people feeling empowered, leaving people feeling like they have the tools that they need after working with me to lead this work at their organization, at their school, wherever, it may be. So that's where it kind of came from. And, a lot of the work I do has to do with equity. So, making sure that workplaces and schools are more equitable. And I do all kinds of trainings and workshops and all of that, but I specifically focus on LGBTQ plus inclusion, just because that's who I am and what I know, and my lived experience helps me with that. And then I also, I work with organizations in all kinds of different workplaces and stuff like that. But the majority of my clients are K through 12 schools, because again, I have the expertise of being a teacher and working in education for such a long time. So I really enjoy working with teachers and working with schools, because it is my passion. Education is my passion. So, and I have that lived experience of being a teacher. So I really enjoy that. And I also didn't have good experiences in school as a trans and queer kid, and also as a trans and queer teacher. So I know how much it's needed. This work is needed in schools. And so that's really been my priority, is to really focus in on schools. But I do work with a lot of different kinds of works too.
That's really, really great to hear about the name. I love a name that leaves people feeling more in integrity to lead, because I think we're in a place, SJ, where when it comes to DEI, and you've been in the work. I was resonating when you were saying, I feel like I've been doing it forever, because literally teaching people how to treat us. But we're in a space now in DEI where there's so much fear and there's so much anxiety around people losing their jobs and laws against the work that we've been doing for these years. And I find that the only way that we're going to have more poise and really more calmness in the work is by activating people's leadership skills.
Yeah.
Because people have so much of that, but they don't really use it in agency when it comes to DEI topics. But then when you activate it in them, it's almost like you can't turn it off. So I really appreciate that you're going back to the places that might have not been the most polite, might have not been the most inclusive. I mean, frankly, might have even caused harm for you in your experience in giving back and educating them. I think that speaks for your name in itself. So we know what kind of year it has been for our community, but I was actually at the BTAC conference. You know about that because we talked about it during coaching. And at BTAC, they were talking about, even though all this legislation, policies, and laws have been put out, only a very small percentage have even been touched or even passed.
Yeah.
But I think what the motivation from the government and the bodies that are doing this is really to create the fear. Because when you create fear, you create stress, you create anxiety. Honestly, a community will kill themselves off. You don't even have to actually pass the laws, right? It's just to create the type of mood. So what are you seeing in schools right now around those challenges? How are you navigating some of the laws that are coming up, even like the laws around just people not even being able to say LGBT in the school place? Like, what kind of conversations are you having right now with folks?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely pervasive. Like, I've worked with schools. I live in Maryland, and so I worked with schools here, and then I worked with schools in California and Arizona and like different states. And every state is different. The climate is different in every state, just depending on really who's in power, who's the governor, who's the mayor, all of that stuff of the different cities and stuff, because we're not really seeing, at least right now, federally, we aren't seeing, I mean, there are bills being pushed out there, but like you said, many of them are not going anywhere. They get written, they get introduced, and then they kind of die in court. So that is happening a lot. But what I've really been experiencing with schools is just, like you said, the fear of even engaging in the kind of work that I do, and the work that is so vital to supporting all students. I mean, inclusion work is for all students. It's not just for, LGBTQ plus students or Black students or, whoever. It's for everybody. You're able to support your students better, all of your students better, when you engage in this kind of work. And so, especially around LGBTQ plus inclusion, though, and trans inclusion specifically, there's a lot of fear, even of just like having a training, and it's tricky because a lot of people they're scared of, parent pushback. That's a big one that I come up against. Like, what are the parents going to say? Or sometimes I work with private schools, and it's like the private school board is like made up of parents. And like, if it's not something that they want to prioritize or something that they want to focus on, then there's no chance of even getting it in there. And it's such a disservice to the students. Like, you're not, like, as a teacher, you're not able to support your students in the way they need to be supported. And like, it's such a disservice to the students when you're not engaging in this kind of work. But yeah, I'm just really seeing a lot of fear. Like, I've had contracts with people and with schools, and they'll just cancel, and they'll want me to change the topic completely to something a lot more vague. Like, I'll go in and be like, oh yeah, like, look, I want to do, this thing on LGBTQ plus inclusion or trans inclusion. And they'll be like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I'll get an email like closer to the date of the workshop, and they'll be like, actually, can you change it to just belonging or just inclusion, which like is great too. Like, there's no harm in that, but also like, again, you're doing a huge disservice to all of the queer and trans kids at your school when you're actively choosing not to learn the things that you need to be able to support them in the way that they need. So I've had things like that happen. I also had a conference situation where it was really cool. It was a school that was doing like an LGBTQ specific conference for students, and I was going to speak to the students. And apparently right before it was supposed to happen, they caught wind of a right-wing parents group that was going to infiltrate the conference and film things to use on the internet against them or whatever. And so they canceled it, obviously, because it was, they need to make sure the students are safe and everyone's safe that's going there. But they ended up canceling it and didn't ever, try to redo it or anything anywhere else just because of that threat. So, I mean, it's scary in a lot of ways, and it's made me a lot more choosy about who I work with, because if I don't know that they're going to have specific protections in place for speakers at a conference or for, me coming in to, speak at their school, then, we have to talk about that ahead of time, because there are people that will film it and put it on the internet. And then I get on, some lives of TikTok thing. And then it's like, get doxxed and all these horrible things happen. I actually know people who that's happened to, and like, it blows up your whole life, and it's like horrible. And so there's a lot that's rolled into all of that, but mostly, like you said, fear is what it's created, and fear to the point where people are just opting out of the work altogether.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. In certain states, they do have the right to record you, right, and do stuff like that. I know California is one of the states that actually passed a law that you cannot record people for these type of moments, and because what people do, folks, because I know some folks are probably watching this and it's like, well, if SJ is doing his doing their training, and their training is so appropriate and it's helping people, why would they even be able to take something and make it something that's a big deal? What they do, y'all, is they literally splice it up, and they will change up what SJ is saying. Mm-hmm. They will use AI to create their own type of, positionality around it. There's so much that they can do. And this happened to us, SJ, about 10 years ago, when we were working on the Boy Doc, which is a documentary I have around, being born, obviously incredible, mostly about trans masculine experience in the African diaspora. One of the folks who was on it, we didn't know we wanted to do a documentary. We were young creators, y'all. So it was kind of like, we were like, we're going to do a web series. So we were dropping like shorter versions of the interviews just to see what that experience would be like. And my friend, shouts out to Van Bailey, if he's watching this, was supposed to be the first LGBT director at Harvard University. So we put it out at the same time that Harvard put out their press conference for Van. We didn't even know about it. Like, we knew Van got the job, but we weren't paying attention to what Harvard was doing it. Some right-wing blog got a hold of it, took the actual footage from our website, started blasting it everywhere, started misgendering him, started sending death threats, sending death threats towards us. It was horrible. I mean, it made it to like Huffington Post, I believe. Wow. And if it was today, I would probably use that traction to create a little bit more media for us, safety for us. But at that time, I was just so fearful. And I was a young person. I had never experienced anything like that. So I didn't know a lot about protection. I didn't know a lot about media. But it was a wild time. So literally, y'all, like, when SJ is talking about their safety and the things that could come up, it's real. And that's why we charge. When people ask me like, you've been doing this for years, why are you charging it? It should be easy. It's not about the training. The training itself is usually actually pretty fun. I enjoy it. The people who are involved with it are really excited. Usually they want to be a part of the conversation, but the post-training, the safety, the political climate, it's just not worth it sometimes. So do you have this set up in your business, SJ? Because I know I was talking to a couple of consultants. Are there certain states that you're not working with because of the climate and because of the laws? Do you have that set up in your business? Are you pretty open to going anywhere right now?
I mean, I don't have I have opinions, let's say, about places that I feel like I don't necessarily want to work, and I don't go to conferences in Florida specifically just because I don't feel comfortable there. And I know that I'm going to be on edge and they're not going to be getting the best of me. And for me, it's just a no. And a lot of conferences happen in Florida. So if you're not like familiar with conferences, a lot of them are in Orlando. A lot of them are, in Florida. And there is I learned this not that long ago, but there's some like workaround in Florida where like they can get breaks on like some conference things, they can get breaks on it, and that's why there are so many
it's a lot more affordable for most organizations to do it there. Yeah,
exactly. And so that's why there's so many that are in Florida, but I just don't feel comfortable there, so I don't do anything in Florida. I really try not to go to Texas if I can help it. I grew up there and that's home to me in some ways, but I don't look for things there. I don't seek things out there. If someone comes to me and is like, I, work in Oklahoma or something, and I want you to come do a training, it would definitely be something I have to think about. But I know that if they're seeking me out, usually that means that they really need me. That for me sometimes is enough to be like, okay, like if this person is really confiding in me about this, like they must really need it. And like, I want to do. So at the end of the day, for me, like, yes, the money is important and all of that. But for me, I do this because I care and because I know how much this is needed and how much I want to make sure that the same things that happen to me in these spaces don't happen to anybody that comes after me. That's what's most important to me. So yes, the money is great and all of that. But for me, if people really need my services, like I'm willing to work with them in whatever way that looks, maybe virtually, so that I don't actually have to travel to those states. But it's a never say never kind of situation, but I definitely, try to put my safety first, which is really hard because my identity is out front of my work, right? Like that is part of my business. That's my lived experience, as a trans, queer, non-binary person. And so I can't like put that on the shelf for the day. It's me, it's who I am, and it's what I do for work, with my consulting business. So that has been a tricky thing to navigate. It's like, how do you keep yourself safe, but also be authentically who you are and use that, to inform your work. So that's been a tricky balance for me to find is like, how do I keep myself safe, but also make sure that I'm being me and being who I am. So that's been hard.
Exactly. Attention public speakers, coaches, and consultants. Ever dreamt of booking 5-figure speaking and consulting contracts? In just 5 days, I'm teaching my tried and tested system to elevate your speaking and consulting business. Forget the cold emails, bypass the salesy pitches. This challenge is about building genuine high-value connections. And here's a promise I have for you. With a commitment of just 1 to 2 hours a day for 5 days, you're going to witness transformative results. On day 1, you'll learn how to craft a business strategy without cold emails or paying to speak. Day 2 is all about you redefining your profile to attract decision makers ready to invest in your expertise. By day 3, you'll have your very own 5-figure sales system to turn contacts into clients. By day 4, we will have you automating your funnel with proven templates and scripts. And day 5, I'm going to teach you how to master the art of discovery calls with a step-by-step checklist and exclusive 5-figure sales secrets. Whether you're just stepping onto the speaking scene or you're a seasoned pro, this challenge is tailor-made for you. I'm going to teach you the exact strategies that have helped me help my clients make over $2 million in the last 2 years. The journey to a thriving 5-figure speaking and consulting business begins with this challenge. So are you ready to redefine your limits, accelerate your growth, and bask in the limelight of your success? I want you to join the 5 days to 5-figure speaking challenge now. Let's rewrite your success story together. Simply head over to speakingforprofit.com. You're going to click that button that says 5 days to 5-figure speaking gigs so you can get started with the challenge. Can't wait to see you there. All right. Now back to the show. Finding authenticity in all the chaos, right?
Yeah.
Which is so important. So let's give some people some tips, SJ, right? Like, because I know you're a community resource. I consider myself one as well.
Yeah.
If someone's listening to this and they're a teacher or administrator at a local high school, and they just want to create a little bit of change, right? They're just like, you know what? I would just like to know what it looks like to make my space more inclusive. What are maybe 3 tips that you would give educators today?
Yeah. So the first one that I always give is using inclusive language. I think that's one of the easiest, smallest things that you can do that really makes a big difference. And for some people, it's really easy. Some people, it's harder. If you've been on this earth a long time, you might have things really ingrained in you as far as language goes, because the words that we use matter. And so we want to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible. And I'm specifically talking about gender inclusive language. So instead of addressing, class and saying boys and girls, we're saying folks, we're saying everyone, we're saying students, instead of in gym class, it's boys versus girls. We're making space for every identity to be recognized there. And something that I always share is that there are so many other creative ways to address people and to group students than boys and girls or using gender at all. So get creative with it. It can be, everybody that's got on, black shoes versus everybody that's got colorful shoes on, things like that. It doesn't have to do anything with gender. I always try to pose it this way too, that when you say boys and girls, what about that one non-binary kid that then has to figure out what group they're going to go with? And then it has to be this huge embarrassing moment for them to have to try to figure this out. And it can be a really isolating experience. And that's the last thing we want to do is make anyone feel isolated. So that's one real, I think, easy thing that everyone can engage in, is just changing the language that you use. And if you go to my website, which is www.empoweredforequity.com, and join my email list, I have a freebie that you get when you sign up that is an entire big list of all the gender inclusive language you could ever want. So if you're looking for ways to make the language that you use more gender inclusive, go join my email list and you'll get that PDF document free when you join. And it's a lengthy document of all the swaps you can make with your language. So that's one thing that I always tell people. And that's for anybody, not just teachers. That could be for your mom, that could be for whoever. But in schools, it's very important. And something that I still see quite a bit is very, gendered grouping and addressing students by gender. Another thing is making sure that your policies and procedures at your school are not gendered. So one thing that I talk a lot about is dress code, which everyone always has lots of things to say about dress code. But, a lot of schools, it's dress code for girls versus dress code for boys, or, it's a very gendered situation. And so that's something that I help schools with a lot, is going in and ungendering their dress code, or making sure that they have policies and procedures in place that actively support their LGBTQ plus students, or their students that are transitioning or experimenting with their gender, exploring their gender identity. And that can look like, having a policy at school about changing your name. So if you want to change your name at school, how do you go about doing that? Making sure that your students know these policies, because it doesn't do anyone any good when you have a policy, but then the students don't know it. So, I see that actually quite a bit. It's they don't know about the policies, so then how are they supposed to use them? So making sure you have things in place like that is important. Policies about bathrooms, policies about locker rooms, sports, all these different things that can be, really isolating experiences for students who might not fit so neatly into, gendered boxes. So that's another one that I often tell people when I work with schools, is let's look at your policies and procedures. Let's see, where we can make changes here. And then the last one that I am trying to advocate for a lot more that I don't see enough of is gender support plans, which are plans that schools have in place to support students who are exploring their gender identity or actively transitioning socially, medically, anyway. And these plans are basically centering the student's needs. So the student should be involved in coming up with the plan. Their parent or caregiver usually is there as well. Their teachers are all there, and usually a school counselor, sometimes an administrator. They all get together and they say to the student, how would you like us to support you? You draw up a plan basically of what that looks like. So what names does the student want to go by? What pronouns do they want to go by? What's the bathroom situation for them? When it's time for gym class, where do they change, their clothes? Things like that. How do we support you best? And the student has to be centered in that experience. Because if not, if the parent is the one that's trying to say what, should go, that's not always reflective of what the student wants or how they want to be supported. And so more and more schools are adopting having gender support plans in place, but it's a really good way to streamline support across the board so that all of that students, teachers, they know how to support that student in the same way. So it's not like one teacher is calling you this name and other teachers, using these pronouns, things like that. And so that's another thing I do when I work with schools is help them create those, the structure for those plans and then how to implement them across the board, at their school. But that's something that's so helpful, and can really make a difference for a student who is, experimenting with their gender identity or is transitioning. It's something that I wish I would have had, at that age. I wasn't out at the time, but maybe if I would have been, that would have been something that would have been super supportive to me. And, these plans do have the potential to do more harm if they're not set up the correct way. That's something I always advocate for schools to have as well, because it really does make a huge difference in how we're supporting our students.
I love it, SJ. I hope that whoever is listening / watching on YouTube, that you have gotten your notebook out and that you took really good notes. And if you didn't, I hope that you rewind, go back so that you can get those down. Because seriously, these are things that, of course, you should hire SJ and bring them in. That would be great. But if you don't have not even just the budget, sometimes it takes a little bit of buy-in. Implementing one of these and seeing how well it really goes could be really helpful for the next step, which is bringing in an expert like SJ, right?
Yeah.
So I'm serious, y'all. Take the notes, take them back to your schools and try to at least implement the inclusive language and just see where you get, because guarantee you're going to get to a space where someone's going to be like, I need more education on this. And then you can hire SJ and their amazing consulting company to be able to support you with this. What I love about the work that you're doing, SJ, in particular, for young people is you're also creating agency in them, right? Even hearing about this whole plan that they can come up with. I used to work with a lot of college students, and by the time they got to college, they didn't know how to talk for themselves, how to advocate for themselves. And that's what I want you all to think about. This young person who has this gender plan in K through 12, imagine how powerful and how much agency they can have for themselves as they become an adult. Because every institution that they go into, they're going to have to educate them, right? Yeah. College, most likely their first workplace, their third workplace. Heck, for both of us, leaving and joining corporate over and over again, you have to continue to do it. So it also creates great agency in them as well. So you, SJ, you talked about this amazing ebook that you have. What we're going to do, y'all, is put that in the show notes and the description. So you can go on and click the website, go over to it. Make sure you put in your email and get that, amazing list. And then on the back end, I believe that there's also an ebook that they can purchase as well, right?
There is,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. What's the name of the ebook? Can you tell me that?
Yeah. So the ebook is, it's called Transparency: How to Advocate for Your Transgender Child at School. So specifically for folks who have trans kids in K through 12 education, it's all levels. So it'll work for if you have a kindergartner versus a high schooler. It'll work for anyone. Yeah. So parents and caregivers of trans kids can read it, and it's got a lot of information on kind of the logistics of communicating with schools, because that's usually a big barrier and sticking point for people when they're trying to advocate for their kids at school. So how do you document, all the communication you have? What happens if you need to get legal aid? What happens if something is a recurring issue at school, like how do you really work with that? And then also, how do you protect your mental health as a parent or caregiver, protect your child's mental health as much as you can in that scenario, because it's a lot and it's hard. It's a very hard thing to do because it's, again, something that hasn't been streamlined. There's not like a process that every school follows. Every school is different, and where there might be really, someone might have a really supportive administration, teachers, all of that at their school. There's a school right down the road that doesn't, and that it could be really, really tricky for you to be able to advocate for your child. So that's what that's about. But I also have one other thing I want to plug. This is new. This is the reveal for it a little bit.
Okay. A little glitter for us. Yeah.
I am releasing on June 7th. I don't know if this will be before or after that, but on June 7th, I am releasing a LGBTQ plus allyship scavenger hunt that I have created, which is a really wonderful way to level up your allyship if you've been looking to do that. So many people I know are like frozen right now and are like, I don't know what to do to like help advocate for my LGBTQ plus friends or the people that are in my life, my kid, my friends, my family members, things like that. And so this is an active way to do that. So there are a couple different tasks that you'll complete in the scavenger hunt. Some of them are educational, so a little bit of research on, different things. And one of them, there is a section where you go and read, listen to, or watch like a LGBTQ plus documentary or a podcast that has an LGBTQ plus guest, or read a book that's got characters that are LGBTQ in it. And then there's the other part of it is active things. So you'll actually be going out into your community and going to an LGBTQ plus owned business and buying something from them, or going to a pride event in your local community, or things like that. So we know that with allyship, it has to be active. We can't just call ourselves allies, right? We actually have to do things to be allies. So in order to do that, you have to have action behind it. And so that's what I really wanted to create with coming up with this, is making it something active and fun for people to do, and also educational, so that people can take that away from it as well. So that comes out June 7th. It'll be on my website, the same thing that was shared before, and it is going to be discounted for the whole month of June. So if you get it in June, you'll get it at a discounted rate. But July 1st, it's going up to the normal rate. So get it at a discount while you can. And if you get it, make sure that you tag me on Instagram if you're doing the scavenger hunt, and share how it's going. And you can tag me. I'm at Empowered for Equity on Instagram, and tag me and show us what you're doing out in your community and how you're leveling things up.
I love that, SJ. I love a good game, y'all. So I might have to go on and download this myself because I want to be the champion of allyship as well. But SJ, thanks for creating that. I think anytime we can gamify things, especially when we're talking about navigating and supporting our young people, it's always a great experience. And I want everyone to know who's watching and listening to this, SJ puts so much labor of love into their work. And really creates amazing assets. So you're going to enjoy this, but believe it or not, it's something that you're probably going to use over and over again. And what SJ is really doing, y'all, is creating a path for you to have the conversation in different places. Yep. Right. The list that we talked about, that's something that you can take easily to a board meeting, or maybe to an all staff meeting. The book, the ebook, that's a great space for like your parent support group to bring that into that space. And then you have the scavenger hunt, which can work for any community, right? So anyone. There should be no excuse when you have this many resources to not create more space for inclusion for LGBT folks and to act like you don't know how to do it, right? You have SJ here to support, and you also have all of those amazing tools. So let's pivot a little bit, SJ, before we wrap up our time together. You've been a part of S4P for a minute now, and it's been great to work with you. But I know that there's other consultants who are watching this who are like, you know what, I really want to start my own business. And I know you gave us that great gem at the beginning where you just put it on the calendar. You said, hey, it's Pride Month. I'm going to go on and start my business. But maybe what are two things that S4P has taught you along your journey, and anything else that you might want to share with someone who's still on the fence about just committing to being a DEI consultant?
Yeah, I've learned so much from S4P. Like, I feel like it has been such a game changer in the amount of growth I've had over the course of a year of having my business. I definitely wouldn't have come out with digital products or anything like that if it wasn't for S4P. Like, I wouldn't have even probably thought about that. And I'm actually really good at it. So I'm glad that
you are really, really good at it. Like, so really, really good at it.
That was part of it. But I think one thing that I really, really enjoyed and learned a lot from is just having a community of other consultants to talk to bounce ideas off of, to get to know one-on-one and get to promote each other's work. And I mean, there have been people in S4P that have gotten me hired places, which has been amazing, of course. But I think, just having a community of people who know what it's like and know the ups and downs of being a consultant and just like how it can be a discouraging journey. It can also be a really, great experience. I mean, there's highs and lows as with anything. And I think just having a community around you that believes in your work and believes in what you're doing and wants to see you win. Like, I think that's like one of the greatest things. And I feel the same way about everybody, in S4P too, that I want everybody to win. I want everybody to get hired. I want everyone to be doing like amazing things, and everyone is. And so I think just having the ability to learn from people who are more seasoned in this than I am, but also people who are like doing things right alongside me, I think has been really, really impactful for me. And just like having that community has been great. I think the second thing that I've really learned from S4P is having an abundance mindset. Like, that has really changed other parts of my life too, and not just like business life. But, I think as LGBTQ plus people, as, people who are people of color, I think we come from this place sometimes of scarcity in our lives because of past experiences or just like how we've been treated or things like that. And, I think it's hard to value ourselves to the extent that we should sometimes. And I think S4P specifically has gotten me to a point where I have been able to say, like, no, I am worth that amount of money. Or no, like, I am going to charge this much. And like, if you can't pay that, then sorry, I'm not going to work for you. Like being able to like be confident in saying that instead of being like, okay, I'll take crumbs, like I'll do this for free this time, and then end up doing it for free every time or whatever. Like, it has really helped me have the confidence to be like, you know what, this is my hard line as far as pay goes. And like, I deserve that, all this work that I'm putting in. And, people are always trying to be like, oh, we don't have the budget, or like, oh, like, but they do. And they just don't want to pay you is the thing. But like, if you set that expectation early, like, this is it, then like, people will take you seriously and they'll value your time a lot more. They'll value what you bring to the table a lot more. They'll hire you back. I mean, there's so many benefits to just like looking at things from that perspective. So that's another big thing that S4P has been really good for, is like really just teaching me, like, it's okay to know that you're bomb, like, it's okay to be like, yeah, like, I'm awesome. And I put all this hard work into this, and like, I'm going to get up there and kill it. And like, all of you are going to want to hire me back. And it's because of this. So yeah, I think those are my two big ones.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's always good to hear what's on the other end. And I know so many folks have promoted your work. I promote your work.
Yeah.
And you promote all of us, SJ. And I really appreciate that. I feel like you give what you get back. You're really good with reciprocity. And I hope that you can continue to nurture that side of yourself as a business owner, because you're just going to go such a long way. And it's been a pleasure to see you grow, but also to just see you like get engaged and like live life as a trans person. I think growing up in this work, you hear so much about the disparities.
Yeah.
So to see you like living your dreams and enjoying yourself and like traveling. Like, it's just beautiful, right?
Yeah.
It's beyond just seeing you be a business owner and a worker bee. It's like, we get to see SJ live their life. And be really passionate about living a life that is full of abundance beyond money. So I love that you mentioned that. So we've got the ebook, we've got the scavenger hunt. Pride Month is popping. Do you still have space if folks want to hire you and bring you in? Is your calendar still open for that as well?
Yeah, so I've got maybe 1 or 2 more spots that I could squeeze in for Pride Month. So if you're doing a panel or you need a training, I can come in and do that. You can schedule a discovery call with me on my website. It's also in my bio on my Instagram and on my LinkedIn, so you can find it there as well. But I think I could squeeze in 1 or 2 more if people need it. So definitely reach out if you're interested.
Definitely. Also, if y'all are interested in working with SJ, please reach out. This would be a great opportunity to bring this into your organization. And as you've heard from today, that they can bring, whether it's a really serious corporate conversation or even bringing something more fun or gamified for your organization. SJ, it's been a pleasure to have you on Speaking for Profit Live. We got to bring you back to the podcast. I kind of want to do maybe like a panel where we talk a little bit about the different policies that are coming out. So maybe we'll do something like that around like National Coming Out Day. But, bringing all of us and our expertise and really giving people a piece of what they can do to support the work, especially since this is an election year. I think it could be really powerful for us. But anything else you want to share as we kind of close things up?
No, I don't think there's anything else. I mean, just check out my website if you're interested in, getting that free resource. Definitely join my email list. I don't spam people. I only send out 1 email a month, and it's, always like where I'm at, what I'm doing in that month, what I did the month before, so you can know where I am and what I'm doing. And you'll get like updates on new products that I have coming out, or if I am doing cohorts or anything like that, you'll get the first announcements on that stuff. So that's another benefit to being on the email list. Yeah. And other than that, I think, that's where you can find me. I'm also always on Instagram and LinkedIn posting content and stuff there. So please go follow me on those platforms as well. And reach out if you want to work together.
Definitely, y'all. And enjoy your Pride Month, y'all. Go out, have some fun, meet with community, and make sure that you tap in with SJ. And we hope that you have an amazing day. Until next time, y'all. Peace.